Okay, for my final master's thing, what we had to do is we had to pick some action research that we can actually, in a 6-week time frame, perform and fill out and actually get results. So I chose to do something I do every day, or try to, which is Dreambox. So I did Dreambox for math fluency instead of for reasoning, because as you know, Dreambox, they don't want you to use the whiteboards and the pencils and the papers. It's all about concrete understandings, taking family numbers and things like that. So Miss Walker, you could. The reason I chose fluency is because majority of the 5th grade standards are number and operation or algebraic thinking standards, which all build based off those basic fluency facts. So that's why I chose this, and also because it's designed and help with fluency and figure out what strategies they need. And if you've been on the program, you can see that if one strategy is not working, there's other options they can choose to help them. So I just wanted to see what the correlation was between, is it really working? Are we really spending this money on a program that's beneficial, or maybe is there something else? So Miss Walker, also the purpose of it was to build their automaticity, to see, do we need to incorporate the whiteboards back there, or do we really need to have it be more of a concrete building those skills, and to eliminate boundaries such as students still counting on their fingers and struggling with doing their 9s trick. Yes, it's a great strategy, but we eventually want them to have those fluently in their mind. And I wanted to determine the impact on Dreambox. Should I be spending my 15 minutes a day each student on it, or should I try something different? We had to find some literature in our literature review to see if it is supportive of math fluency. Is it really important? Because, you know, technology nowadays with calculators on our phones and our computers. And I did notice that when students can quickly answer and solve math computation questions, it can enhance the learning of new skills, which is so true, because if they're still focusing on their finger counting, they're no longer going to be focused on the new skill of adding fractions. They're more worried about still just adding. And then also this was what I thought was very interesting. The building number sense in very early education will determine their math success for the rest of their education career. So if they don't get it really young, they're still struggling for the rest of their time in school. I'm going to skip over this one. It's still again on fluency, but on the next one, it talks about computer-based programs. And you know, a lot of people are hands-on manipulatives, and some people still use worksheets, but I wanted to know about the computer programs. Are they effective for all students? And it's kind of like giving each student, and I like the way they worded it, an IEP. They each have their own individual education plan guided through this program to keep them going, to keep pushing them, to stop them if they're struggling, and that's why we get those notifications. And I thought when I read that, it was kind of like a light bulb. I'm like, well, duh, everybody's Dreambox looks different. Everybody's Lexia looks different. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And if you could go on, Miss Walker. And this was just the references from where I received some of that information. This was my research question that we came up with, myself and my professor. What effect does the computer adaptive math program Dreambox have on 5th grade students' math fluency? That's just what I wanted to see. And the justification, like I said earlier, is a lot of my kiddos still struggle with the automaticity of basic facts. We look at the multiplication chart, we're using our agendas, we're using our fingers, which are great, but I want us to get away from that so it's quicker. And I wanted to just determine the effect of Dreambox on fluency. These are my sampling participants. As you know, I have 27 students, but I chose to not include the 2 that came in at the middle of the school year, because I took the data from August and I didn't have their data. So I decided to eliminate them. So these were the people that I used for my sampling, and it is my homeroom is the one I chose just because it was easier to pull all their information. So, and all of the students RTI or RIT score of 200 on MAT test. That's their average of my homeroom. That's the lowest. So everybody has at least a 200, and my homeroom is where I picked my very low minimum. So this is my instruments. Every student for 15 to 10 minutes on Dreambox. students trying to complete the lessons based on their individual level. On Fridays, we take assessments for check for understanding. That could either be a time test, looking at their Alexia minutes, doing the little flashback assessments that we do back there. And on Fridays, I always checked their Dreambox account for progress, actual time on lessons, as we saw. Some people weren't actually on the lessons, and if a student needs assistance. This was just students that require to spend 10 to 15 minutes each day. This is an actual picture from some of my kiddos. And as you can tell, 66, this column represents the weeks, the average, as this is the lessons they've completed so far, and there's their growth. As some students have 447 lessons completed, 177% growth, and then we have, it even breaks it into the skills. Like there's the 4th grade, 5th grade, and even some of the 6th grade skills. I just wanted to show you kind of what I look at when I calculated this data. And like I said, Kentucky Education Department guideline for math proficiency is a 221. So that's kind of where my baseline of what I wanted to see, how many of my students were actually reaching 221, who was underneath, and then the correlation between Dreambox and these actual MAP scores. Is there a relationship or not? And this is kind of what you will see in the program, lesson in progress, and it even talks about students will multiply numbers. Down here it even says fluency is part of the skill, and it gives the standard underneath. And these are both 3rd grade standards from a particular student. Ms. Walker? This was my very first day of school to when we took the fall math. This is my 5th graders' data. This red line right here represents the 221. So that red line represents the 221. This is the average minutes. This is before we started implementing the 10, 15 minutes a day. They must have the 60 minutes. This is kind of where they fall. As you can tell, the average is in between 20 and 40 minutes a week. That's it, rather than the 60, which is down here. And I only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students who fell above the 221 in the fall. Then I did it again for the winter. And I can't wait to see the spring one and tomorrow. But then the green was the fall, the blue's the winter. Now more of the students are falling in the 60 category. 18 below that red line at the fall, only 12 below that line at the winter. And then I'm going to see it again in the spring. But as you can tell, majority of the people who have their 60 minutes are falling above the red line. Then I compared in the fall to the winter. This is their average. Look at the difference between, they actually, here's their 60-minute mark. And a lot of them are really close, but some of them are still not there. And the ones with the little lines above it are the students who fell on the MAP testing. So from the fall to the winter, their scores were actually lower. This is very eye-opening to me. Number and operations, this is their scores right here, and this is their fall and their winter. So I just lined them up. I just did it from least to greatest so you can see. And right here, the 0, the 3, 1, 0, and 2, those are how many points they fell back. And I just want you to look at this because then in the next slide, when we see the next chart, this will be kind of shocking. Okay, this right here is one of those students who was in the red who fell back. 92% growth, 74 minutes is her average on Dreambox, and 265 lessons. So then I started to wonder, okay, one of the students who didn't make any growth has my highest average lessons, my highest average minutes, my highest growth, or still has 92% growth, but she fell 3 points on the map. So is this program really working is what I was kind of starting to think in my head. Ms. Walker, here it is. Look at this. This red line is the 60-minute mark. 1, 2, 3, 4 students who did not reach 60 are at proficiency. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 students who didn't have their 60 minutes are at proficiency, which I found was very, up here, connected to Dreambox and their scores. So the student who did not meet, who fell, who has their 60 minutes, is this person right here. But that's 1 out of 12 people. I just found that very shocking that there's only 4 up top who have their 60 minutes who aren't there yet, but they made growth. There's only 1 kiddo who's in the 60-minute mark who fell backwards, which was kind of shocking. And look at Number of students who met their 60 minutes, 8 out of the 12 were at the 221 mark, and this was in the winter. And as we know, there are some kiddos who get pulled out and do not get all of the time on the computer that they need, or there's even some of them who want to get on different things, for instance, Khan's Academy, and I allow them to do it sometimes. So there are a few of these students who could be up here, but that's on my fault. That's not theirs. So, but I thought that was very shocking, because then I was like, okay, maybe this is a great thing, because 8 out of 12 are where they're supposed to be with their 60 minutes, but only 4 who don't have their 60 minutes are where they're supposed to be. So that's kind of where I came up with. And then this is also our class average. 219 was our class average in the winter, or in the fall, excuse me. 225 was the class average in the winter, and then into the spring. And the change between the fall and the winter and Dreambox was 48 minutes was our difference between the two. That's a big, that's a whole class. So yeah, there are the 3 students who did not improve, but look about how much. The biggest drop was in 3 points. So, yeah. And then the next part of this is I asked you all to do a survey for the PLCs, the PLC group. And I took all of your data and I put it in charts and I analyzed it and I spent a lot of time on it. So after reviewing the data with the PLC, our next steps are, and we don't have it because I wanted to talk to you all about it after you see everything to kind of what they are. So it allowed me, what? Oh, okay. You can keep going. Sorry. That's for mine. What strengths and weaknesses does the survey on the team norms say about 4th and 5th grade PLCs at Bloomfield Elementary? Which I found was very shocking, and Ms. Harden, I'm glad you're here. But what I found was very shocking was we all agreed on every single question, agree or strongly agree. We didn't have anything that we said, I don't agree with, I don't like, I wish we did something different. And you know how sometimes I thought, maybe they're just saying it because I gave this survey, but even the comments even had evidence. So if you keep going for me. This is just who conducted the survey. 2 5th grade general education teachers, 1 5th grade special ed, and 2 4th grade. I want to do that one. I did the survey on team norms because you know how sometimes when people, you just want to know what the environment and what everyone else is feeling about the PLCs. Is it working for them? What do they think is effective, ineffective? And so that's why I chose that one. I just thought that would make, for where we are in our PLCs, I thought that would be a good benefit. This was what it looked like, you remember. So I just had to give a picture of my instrument and the tools that I used. And I handed it to all of you all. It was anonymous. You didn't have to put your names on it. And you just handed it back to me. And it was, I appreciate it. It was very simple and easy, and I didn't have to track them down. But this was just, if you remember the questions, how it was scaled. Strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree. So I analyzed them, and questions 1 and 2 were both about protocol. How does it run? What do we think is effective? Question 3 and 4 were about our goals. And I liked question 5 because it talked about, does it have a positive impact within our classroom? This was question 1 and question 2. Question 1, everybody but one person said strongly agree. And that was talking about understands the norms of what's supposed to happen in a PLC. What are we supposed to be doing? Question 2 talked about living up to the norms. Are we living up to what exactly we know is supposed to be happening in there? And 3 people, oh sorry, it's all right. Got a little finger happy. 3 people said, I agree. We know what it is, but we're not all strongly always doing exactly what's supposed to, as 2 said we are. This question was about goals. Everybody but one person said we are 100% agree on every goal together. We know these are our goals. This is what we're reaching for. And then 4 and 5 I thought was awesome because every single person who took the survey said strongly agree on, are we making progress towards our goal as our school, and does it have a strong impact in our classroom? So I thought that was awesome because, and I agree, working together and collaborating is wonderful, especially when we're up there and we come back and we can use it, and we're using the calculators within the class. So what we're doing up there is reflected in our rooms. And then we have set norms for our PLC, but maybe if we could live up to them more, which sometimes I kind of might just forget what exactly are our norms, which they're on the wall, but let's be honest, we don't read everything always. Establishing our goals. All members are reaching to achieve the goals, and it is a positive impact on our school. We value the information and collaboration time together in PLCs. We understand the norms, goals, and expectations that are established to get the best out of our PLC. We have a goal in our mind of our PLCs, and our students will make sure all of them are reached. That's okay. This is exactly what was copied on your all's notes. I didn't make that up. And then this was our weakness. Sometimes we can spend too much time on housekeeping, and we understand that has to be there, but sometimes we just keep going with those questions rather than breaking into our PLC. And when we collaborate on creating assessments, we do not always share the data once we are finished with it, because we'll work together on creating something, and then we never hear if it worked, if it didn't work, what was the impact on it. So, and the next steps is, I just said down here for the next steps is maybe make sure we are staying on focused and we reach our goal before PLC time is over. So what is our goal of today? Let's talk about our goal. Let's get it going. First, we're going to spend 10 minutes on this, and then we got to move forward. Was kind of some of the next steps that I came up with. So, and that's it. So does anybody have any questions about this? You all are so quiet. I was expecting some. Okay.
You warned us, threatened us.
Did I?
You plan to follow up on some of your research?
I am going to follow up, especially when my homeroom test tomorrow. I want to go see, I'm going to wait and then get those back and compare them exactly to what, if that trend's still living. And I know here towards the end of the year I've kind of gotten off Dreambox as much because I've been pushing Khan's Academy for some of the higher kids and working on some certain skills and those, you know. But looking at that data, I now realize, okay, they do need, and it's not 40 minutes, they need the 60 minutes a week to really make sure that it's working and that they're understanding. And it's, I don't know, I was kind of, at first when I saw that one student, I'm like, she's my top lessons, and she fell 3 points. But then when I compared it as that's one student compared to my whole 25 other ones, she was a one student rather than the other guy. So yeah. It was kind of fun to correlate them too, because, you know, we spend a lot of time, make sure you're on your lessons, and it was actually worth it.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Very informative. I liked it.
Well, good.
Helped
Very
me
good.
understand it even better.
Well, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Ms.
Very
Fox,
good.
for recording.
Absolutely.
Good job.